Since our girls are starting kindergarten next year, my buddies and I have been debating the pros and cons of different schools. I told them about a new Spanish immersion program nearby, thinking they'd be psyched. But Bill says, I had plenty of trouble in school without doing it in Spanish. Plus my wife says we wouldn't fit in since we don't speak Spanish. I was sure Jose would be hot on a Spanish program, but he said, I went to one of those programs when I moved to the US, but Rosa already speaks English. The first bilingual schools were actually started in the US by Polish immigrants in the 1600s. Today, there are many kinds of language-focused schools in the US. There are bilingual schools for kids with limited English skills. These schools teach kids in their native tongue as a bridge to learning English. The bridge can be short, fast-tracking kids into all English, or long, kids learning in 2 languages over several years. Then there are immersion or dual language programs. The goal of these programs is for students to leave high school completely biliterate. And of course, some traditional schools teach second languages as one of many academic classes. All kids benefit from speaking more than one language, and learning a second language when young actually develops brains in powerful ways. Not all language programs are right for all kids. Children with language-related disabilities may have a tough time with immersion programs. And they're not right for every parent either. Helping with homework can be challenging. But language programs are worth considering. I convinced my friends to visit the school to find out what would be the right fit for their children. And you should too.
When you begin language study as an adolescent, in most cases you earn academic credit. When you begin language study as a child, you acquire a voice in the human conversation.
There was a great German poet named Goethe long ago who said, "He that speaks only one language sees the world with only one eye."
This is a choice for parents who really want to have this kind of language learning for their kids when they realize that they are going to be bilingual and biliterate coming out of elementary school.
This is a real leg up in economic development to have a population that can be fluent in speaking a multiplicity of foreign languages.
A few years ago, the State Board of Education spoke with legislators about the need to improve our foreign language capability here in the state.
In 2008, Senate Bill 41 created the Utah Dual Immersion Program. It was created through the good work of former Governor Huntsman and State Senator Howard Stevenson. When the program was funded, we were then charged to create the finest dual immersion program in the entire country.
So here we are, this landlocked state that's not, people imagine in California, New York, Chicago, these would be places where a lot of Chinese and other languages spoken.
I'm in most every state in the nation, and in the work that I do, I find people very interested in what is happening in Utah.
Utah is being talked about all over the United States because we're doing something that no one else is doing.
What Utah is doing for immersion is expanding, blowing up the numbers of students who are able to participate in immersion.
I don't think there's a better program in the United States right now. We have cohorts of people organized to make this successful.
These immersion programs are just adding to our already, I think, appeal to the business community.
But the very fact that the state legislature has provided funds for the initiative and provided its support for ensuring that these programs succeed and grow is another variable that's unique to Utah.
This state is not made it a political issue. Lots of people want to strengthen language learning these days for many reasons. Maybe it's for business competitiveness, maybe it's for broad education, maybe it's for general enlightenment, maybe it's for all these reasons, but it's all good.
I think we see an economic purpose in being open to the world that we hope will present a competitive advantage for Utahns.
We have to have that one edge that makes us stand out more so than anybody else, and Utah has that with the dual immersion program.
The critical language bill was to give us in the elementary schools the opportunity to start dual immersion programs based on a two-teacher model, 50-50 model. That means 50% of the day in the target language and 50% of the day in English.
It is probably the most effective way of learning a foreign language in the context of a school setting.
You are learning the language as you are learning content, so everything you are doing is real. You're talking about math problems, you're solving math problems.
Students learn the language because they're immersed in it. So it sort of happens as a byproduct.
But to learn language in isolation is not always the most effective model. We want students learning content in a language.
Well, we do half day in English and half day in Spanish.
I start in French and then go to English.
English half the day and Chinese half the day.
When you go to the Spanish teacher's class for 3.5 hours, never a word of English is spoken.
You have to speak English in one class and Spanish in the other.
Immersion is the best, most effective model. It also happens to be the cheapest model.
We're using a two-teacher model, and this doesn't increase our FTE or the number of teachers in the building.
Un autre, on se reconnaît, alors à vous. Montrez.
We truly have parents knocking down our doors to make this accessible to their students.
I was ecstatic when we found out that this was coming to our area. I know multiple people have tried to either move here or get boundary exceptions to be a part of this program.
Parents in Utah get it about the importance of language from many different angles. There are waiting lists at every place.
We do a random drawing. Kids are just selected, and so there are always a few that are on the waiting list, and they're okay with that too.
And if my kids don't see that I value their education and that I want this for them, and to show them all the advantages that it can give them, then in my opinion, I'm not a very good parent.
Got a baby child of a new generation. Gonna have to find him an education. A new trend is rising 800%. Who needs an antiquated antecedent? Taking immersion, taking a two-way.
Although bilingual education has existed in the U.S. since the early 19th century, it has repeatedly been an issue of contention, especially in the last 20 years. James Crawford sees the campaign to end bilingual education as a clear message to speakers of other languages. Rejecting bilingual education was a way to send a message that, in the United States, English and only English is appropriate for use in the public sphere.
McDonald International is dedicated to igniting students' passion for learning, sharing, and developing a truly global curiosity. But none of this is possible without our immersion assistants. It costs $1,000 per student to place a second certified native-speaking professional in each classroom, which reduces the student-teacher ratio by half.
The state doesn't fund immersion. The district doesn't fund immersion. Only you fund immersion.
With 100% participation, we can give our students, your children, the gift of the world.
Fluidez del lenguaje. Gakiryōku no seichō. Tolerancia. Sekai no ichi-in.
What do you do when you try your best?
What do you do to try your best?
Give what you can.
Together, we can give your children the world.
We all have our favorites, but one thing is sure. Flowers will bloom with the beauty that's pure.
Having English, having a new tongue. Oh, if only I started when I was young. Bilinguality's not criminality. You could change that old fallacy. There's still diffractions and onomatopoeia. You could have a tea party with churros y tortillas. Take an immersion, taking it two-way. It's a brand new version of the school day. Having English, having a new tongue. Oh, if only I started when I was young. Don't faint or falter if you're stuck in first gear. A new language is nothing to fear.
Immersion programs are modeled after pioneering French immersion programs developed in Canada in the 1960s. Foreign language immersion programs in the United States are designed to develop the education of native English-speaking students by teaching them all their academic subjects in a second language. The superior performance of immersion students is often explained as a simple function of socioeconomic statuses. Numerous studies show how committed parents have a positive influence on achievements of the student. It has been proven that most parents that attend immersion programs are typically better off than non-immersion students. Not only is it financial, it is location. Most good developed immersion programs are farther out in the valley area or off in a lot of other urban areas.
As the face of the U.S. continues to change, organizations like U.S. English and its supporters have used texts like this to promote the identity of the U.S. as an English-speaking nation through publicity and legislation. These campaigns often play on the fears that some Americans may have of growing immigration by tying the issue to language.
I don't understand when people are going around worrying about, we need to have English only. They want to pass a law. We want English only. Now, I agree that immigrants should learn English. I agree with that. But understand this. Instead of worrying about whether immigrants can learn English, they'll learn English. You need to make sure your child can speak Spanish. You should be thinking about how can your child become bilingual. We should have every child speaking more than one language. You know, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing when Europeans come over here. They all speak English, they speak French, they speak German. And then we go over to Europe and all we can say is merci beaucoup. Right?